Hey gang, welcome to a kind of special episode of Vital Vinyl. Special for me because I'm going to be rambling on about one of my favorite bands of all times. And I'm going to be jumping all over the place probably. I don't know, because I'm a genius who never scripts or preps or anything, so doesn't always go well. So just sit back and enjoy the stream of consciousness that will spew out. God, I couldn't even get 2 sentences in before stuttering all over myself. So sit back and enjoy the ride while I discuss Melvins. One of my favorite bands of all times. One of the first bands that I got into when I got into the life of a teenage punk rocker. I first got into them in, I believe, 1989. It was whenever. So, alright, well, I guess I'm going to have to stop myself right there, because I normally hold up whatever records or bands I'm discussing here. But I kind of got a good bit of these, and this isn't even like half of what I used to own before, or even a fraction of what these guys have put out over the years. So what I have is Bullhead, Hostile Ambient Takeover, Houdini, a double album when they put out a trilogy of CDs called, which one is this? The Maggot, and then The Bootlicker, the one that started it off for me, Ozma. These are alphabetical. Stag. And last but certainly not least, because sometimes this is my favorite album of theirs, Stoner Witch. So yeah, I know on the old iPod here, I've got quite a bit more than that. So instead of having it queued up like I shoulda, I'm just going to scroll through it now, and we can see what we got as far as the Melvins go. Let's see, I also got Senile Animal, Honky. Oh yeah, the Kiss Covers compilation, which was pretty cool. Got Lysol, got The Crybaby, which was the third in that trilogy set. Prick, which was like a noise album, and the Singles, discs 1 and 2. And the Singles was like these 7-inchers that they put out, kind of like what Hostile Ambient Takeover was. It's a limited series of 7-inchers. Then they collected them all into the 2 Singles albums. But, so let's see. Let's start with Ozma. I was in 9th grade, I believe, when that came out. And some friends of mine were just talking about it, and I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds cool. I'll get into that. Picked up the record from Underground Sounds and was blown away by it. It sounded like nothing I'd ever heard before. And I mean, you know, I was familiar with Sabbath somewhat. I was a huge Kiss fan when I was like in elementary school. Like I talked about in one of the other episodes, my first concert was seeing Kiss on their Animalized tour. But yeah, so I don't most of these albums that I have are not original pressings. So a lot of them are out of print, but their label, Boner, or their old label, Boner, keeps a lot of stuff in print, like Ozma and Bullhead and Lysol and Eggnog. Lysol and Eggnog are re-released as like a double album. They did that with Ozma and Bullhead also, but I kind of wanted the singles on that mostly because, especially since Ozma was my first dip into the Melvins pool. This one is different than the original because it is a gatefold, and it's got a pretty awesome picture of Buzz there, and Dale again, and Lori Black, Lorax, daughter of Shirley Temple, which was odd. But the record itself looks just like the one I remember. Yeah, but the label's a little yellowed, and even the back, like it's got like this, intentional distressed look on it. The original was not that, but it looked like that, and it had the same picture. And I remember even when they played here, they had the little baby on the flyer. And God, I can't remember who opened for them. Might have been Crowbar? I don't know. So there's a bunch of local bands. But yeah, like I went and saw them with some friends of mine at a place called Storyville, which was cool. It was like right in the quarter on Decatur Street. So it's like you walk out and then there's just all the bars that would sell to us because drinking age was 18 back then. And we were like 15, 16. So they kind of let us in anyway because, hey, New Orleans. But yeah, I just remember like sitting on the curb and then like Buzz was just leaning up against like a little horse hitching post or something, and he's just like leaning on it, and it's just like the whole time. And we're like, dude, that's Buzz. And I wanted to go up and talk to him. Like I've never really had like a fear of talking to celebrities, and luckily that stayed with me. Like drawing comics, like you meet people at shows and stuff. It's the thing that just usually holds me back is not knowing what to say that they haven't already heard like a million times before. Oh, I love your stuff, and like I imagine that celebrities like hearing that because they do work hard at what they do, but they probably hate it because it's like, oh yeah, you're like the 100th person to tell me that. But I don't know. I didn't know what to talk to Buzz about, and that album had only come out like a few months before they'd played, and I hadn't heard Gluey Porch Treatments at the time. Oh, it's another one that I think might be on my iPod, but I don't have on vinyl. And I used to have on vinyl pre-Katrina. But yeah, so I didn't talk to him. I just stood there just looking at him as he just stood there looking up at whatever was in the sky or in his brain or in his hair. Like even then, like his hair was like, it was all shaved on the side, but it was just like this huge crazy thing just like sticking up. And yeah, and then not too long after that, Bullhead came out, which was also an amazing, just sludgy kick ass. But it's like it's sludgy, but then also just rocking, and that's like so much of just what they were doing. Like they'd have like just but then just like just really kick ass rock and roll. And yeah, and this one also is a gatefold. Buzzy playing his Les Paul with the Kiss sticker. Lori dressing like how Buzz dresses now. Yeah, Dale on drums and another Buzz guitar. And this one also, the record looks just like it did back then, so that's pretty cool. Didn't see them for this tour, but this is a band that like... there are like three bands that I've seen just a ton of times and would try and catch them every time they came in town. Melvins, NoFX, and Rocket from the Crypt. Yeah, and then sometimes like when the Melvins would come here, like they'd be, play a show that night, but then during the day they would play at this record store called Mushroom, and they did that like at least 2 or 3 times that I remember going to. And yeah, and so when they came when I was like in my early 20s, I had started a band with like my cousin and this other dude John, who was a drummer in some local bands, and we called ourselves McBain. And so I got another friend of mine to make shirts because he had like silk screening thing, and so like I did McBain and the blood letters like Melvins had back then on some of their stuff, and they had a shirt like this. It was a black shirt with a red Melvins blood letter and then a blue Christopher Lee as Dracula face on the front. But I went with a blue Christopher Walken because Walken was also in a movie called McBain. And yeah, and I wore it to one of those Mushroom Record store shows, and like Dale came up afterwards. He's like, "Do I like your shirt?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I thought of it all by myself." But I'm actually gonna pause this because I haven't worn this shirt in forever, and it's a little scratchy, and I also don't want to mess it up because this is the only one I had. I had like a dozen printed up, and I just gave them out to friends. But alright, so I'll be back in just a sec. Boom, what you know about them shirt changes? So yeah, saw them a few times over those years, like in the mid-90s. Let's see what other albums came out around then. Yeah, got like the Eggnog 10-inch. That was really cool. Loved that one a lot. And Lysol, which was really good, which I don't have, which hopefully I have been dropping hints to my daughter that I want that double album for Christmas. So we'll see if she gets it for me or not. If not, I'll probably just pick it up myself. And then in 1992, I believe it was, this album came out, Houdini, their major label debut, and it was really weird because I remember like walking around the quarter one night and seeing a Melvins video on TV, on MTV, and yeah, and people on MTV were like, "Yeah, there's this new band called the Melvins." I was like, not a new band, but whatever. And I did end up, yeah, here we go, just rambling, time jumping. Not too long after Ozma came out, my local record store at the time, Underground Sounds, had copies of Gluey Porch Treatments. I don't think it was like an original pressing, but it was whatever pressing was back then, and which now would still be a couple $100 to get. So, but it is still in print. I don't know which label is putting it out because I know that was not through Boner Records yet, but I don't know. We'll see who has it. And yeah, tempted to pick it up. It's like pink and green, kind of slimy new version. But I would pick up like any 7-inchers that were coming out, With Your Heart Not Your Hands, Sweet Young Thing Ain't Sweet No More. They had like these flexi discs that came out that had... One had a cover of Buzz as a little kid. One had a cover of Dale as a little kid. Like just different pressings had like, the 2 different band members on it. I don't think they did one with like Lori or whoever was playing bass at the time. But yeah, got that. They had that Kiss covers compilation. They did Got a Thunder on, which was really cool. What other stuff? I don't know. Anything that came out, I was picking it up and I was loving it, and I would record it onto my tapes of the Melvins because I didn't have a CD player in my car at that time, but I had a tape deck, so I would just tape all my albums on my stepdad's awesome home stereo that looked like one of these kind, like the silver brushed aluminum stacked components in a cabinet, late 70s early 80s type of stereos, but it sounded amazing. And so like, yeah, I would use his record player and tape deck to tape all my records onto cassette and then listen to them when I was on the go. But yeah, so Houdini came out, and it was weird. It was weird because another 7-incher that they put out that I had was like, oh god, they had like the Tanks one and blah 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 one, and one that like Set Me Straight, which was on here, and then Night Goat also. And that's one thing that kind of bugged me about this record was it had like 2 songs that they'd already put out previously, which was Set Me Straight, which this version was like some kind of happy pop. Hey, you set me straight. Like it sounded a little too happy for what I like from my Melvins. And they also had Night Goat on here, which was on a previous 7-incher that they put out. And then there was like a cover of Going Blind, like a Kiss song. Then a cover of MC5 song, Rocket Reducer number 62. So it was like 2 cover songs, 2 reissue songs, an instrumental that like I think Cobain played guitar on. And so you really only got like a handful of new songs. So as much as I do like this album, I also kind of felt cheated, especially at the time, because it was like, all right, cool, full price for just like 4 new songs. Kind of sucked. But after that, a couple of years later, this motherfucker came out, and I remember buying the tape at Mushroom Records, driving around and just listening to it. And like, I remember when Revolve came on and just hearing like the guitar, the breakdowns, just I was like, this motherfucker right here. And I just drove around listening to that thing, and it's one of my favorite, if not favorite, album of theirs of all time. For years, this was like, once the weather turned cold here, I would put this album on, grab a 6-pack of beer, and just sit out on my front porch and enjoy the cold weather. Because in New Orleans, it's pretty hot. And for some reason, maybe it came out in the wintertime, or maybe I just listened to it a lot the winter after it came out. But this was like a very wintry album to me. So yeah, whenever the heat finally goes and the cold air comes in, I'll put this on. Not a drinker like I was, so I don't just sit out in front of my house drinking beer. Plus, I'm also not like 22 anymore. That's kind of a thing you can do like in your 20s. You just sit out on the front porch by yourself drinking beer with loud music playing in the background. But yeah, amazing album. And then the follow-up to this one, I got it in here somewhere. Boys and Girls. Do I? Oh, yes. Stag, which is kind of Stoner Witch 2.0. And yeah, love it as well. And so these 2 versions are like put out by Music on Vinyl. They're a limited edition silver vinyl pressing, but they still have the because I've seen like repressings of this record, and like the label, the center label is different, but this has like the classic red and green with the white stripe Atlantic record label. I can show you. What the heck? Why not? What else are we doing today? So yeah, I forget exactly how many of these were put out. Maybe like 1,500 or something, or 1,000. But this one's number 424. Gatefold, which I believe the original one was as well, because I remember these pictures and I remember that. So yeah, I think it was originally like that. But yeah, the album itself, like I said, has that old Atlantic center label, which I remember from one of my Star Trek albums, which we'll get into later. But the record itself says silver, but it looks more gray. But yeah, it's pretty cool. And it sounds amazing. And they did this with like the 3 Atlantic records, which were Stoner Witch, Stag, and Houdini. And I did find Stoner Witch and Stag, and they weren't super expensive, but they also weren't super cheap. But Houdini was like a really kind of, I think that was like the most expensive of the 3. Like $100, if not more. But then I found this one on eBay, and I was like, oh, it's got that Music on Vinyl label. But apparently that was not the limited edition one that I got, because I opened it up after I'd gotten my Stag and Stoner Witch, and then Houdini came in not too long after that, and I opened it up, and I'm like, yeah. I didn't see like a numbered thing on the back, but I'm pulling out the sleeve, and I'm like, yeah, it's got the same black sleeve, the poly liner, and the classic Atlantic Records, but then it was black. And I was like, what? So yeah, I don't have all 3 of the like limited to 500 or 1,000 pressings, whatever it is. But oh well, fudge it. One more reason to not have Houdini be my favorite record. But no, it's still super, super, super cool, and I'm glad I got them. Glad I got them all. And what else we got in here? Yeah, the Maggot and the Crybaby, originally released as CDs only, from what I recall, because that's at least what I had back in the 90s. But they did reissue it, or finally issue it on vinyl, and it's a gatefold, and it's got some probably Mackie Osborne art going in there. The records themselves, which are super heavy, and these are on Ipecac, I believe. I think that's what they came out on originally. White vinyl, pretty cool. Yeah. So that was neat, and I like the sound of it. I love this album. The third one, The Crybaby, which they put out separately, it's alright. It's mostly cover songs. It's cover songs, but sung by different singers. Like they did like Teen Spirit, but with Leif Garrett singing, and another song with like Hank Williams III. Like, you know, cool stuff. Fucking your boy from Tool, like Jesus Lizard Guy, like good singers, but I love Buzz's voice, so with him not singing, that kind of makes it not a favorite. But the second album in this, the Bootlegger, remember when I showed you the first one a minute ago and it was white? Well, this one is like minty green. And it's a rockin' album as well. And then, let's see, what else do we have from the Melvins here? I believe I have only one more Melvins vinyl record, at least for the time being. Because like I said, I've been dropping hints about Lysol and eggnog to the little one, so hopefully she'll pick up what I'm putting down. I did have the original Lysol on vinyl. Yeah, the one that... actually, and it didn't have the tape over where it said Lysol. It was straight up the one that just said Lysol on it. So that would have been worth a lot of money to have had. But darn you, Katrina. Pardon my French. So moving right along. Yeah, this video is about as slow and sludgy as a Melvins album, so kind of fitting. We got Hostile Ambient Takeover. Now this right here, ladies and gentlemen, is the first Melvins album that I bought that wasn't a replacement of something that I had before. All these other records, I'd had them before, pre-Katrina. This one was one that I didn't. But I had heard it on Apple Music and loved it. And it's a pink Pepto-Bismol type of vinyl. But it is a very rockin' album, and like that CD Singles album that I talked about before, this apparently was released as a couple of 7-inchers with a couple songs on each one, probably 2, I would guess. And yeah, this thing is quite rockin'. Quite rockin'. And then after this, they put out an album with Lustmord called Pigs of the Roman Empire. And that is fucking awesome too. It's keeping with the Melvins, slow and then also rocking. It's, to me, it kind of sounds like background music for an alien invasion, if that makes sense. But that's kind of what I see in my head, just like these slow giant aliens coming, you know, kind of Tom Cruise-y War of the Worlds when the big ships were up and just like sort of thing like that. Now after that, unfortunately for me, the Melvins kind of dropped off. I love fucking from 84 to 2004 Melvins. Like, I've even got some CDs down there, like the Mangled Demos, and I had the was it originally like 3 songs or 7 songs, and then it was 10 songs, and then it was 20 songs, but like just like their early stuff as well. I had that. I think I had the CD of that. Like, maybe it was a 10-song CD where it's just a picture of like Buzz and Dale and God, who was their original bass player? I don't remember. But yeah, so that stuff, which had like some early Gluey Porch Treatment songs on it, all the way up to the 2004 Lust and More. But then after that, like when they kind of combined with that band Big Business, wasn't too much a fan of, mostly because it seemed like that Big Business singer was kind of vocally stepping all over Buzz, and that really bugged me because I love Buzz's vocals, just for real, I do. If his vocals became a lady, I'd have to marry her, or at least, yeah, or try and convince my wife to like be really cool about keeping her in our lives as well. I don't know. So yeah, for someone else to be stepping, just trampling Buzz's vocals with their own, like, it kind of pissed me off, because also it's like, dude, who are you to be doing this? This is Buzz Osborne, you know, calm down, other singer guy. But, and yeah, I saw him in concert a few times with that, and the dude was just, nah! It was kind of bugging me. And they've put out some albums since then too, and they, unfortunately to me, have kind of become a band that has some good songs on their albums, but then it also seems like sometimes they're just kind of like fucking with people with stuff they put out, and it's like, dude, come on, let's just put out good music. So I do stream other things of theirs. but I haven't like really bought anything because I haven't heard anything that is like solid albums. Whereas like the ones that I have now, they are solid albums. But I might have to give it a re-listen on some of the more recent stuff because, you know, they also got your boy from Red Cross, who doesn't love Red Cross? You'll see whenever we get to the R's here. You'll see. And they played here with Red Cross, and I missed that show. So that was kind of a bummer. And then they played again, like, recently. But, your boy got the Rona. And that sucked. But, so, if they come back again, maybe I'll catch them that time. Because, despite the drop-off that I mentioned, still love them. And they do know how to put on a great show. And so it's like, even if they have albums that have some songs that kind of just sound like them fucking around, I know whenever they play live, they're going to bring it. They always do. So, yeah. I can't think of anything else to say about this band, but I love them. Love their albums. I've owned so many of their shirts over the years. The only one I have now, though, is an eggnog shirt. But I do rock it occasionally. So, yeah. That's it for the Melvins episode. Don't even know what's next because I'm not going to go look right now. So, it'll be a surprise to the both of us. Later.